Alex, she's a really tough opponent, especially here on grass. I think her game it's perfect here.
Roger Federer was sitting in the royal box. The crowd on center court had already fallen in love with her over the past 8 days. And for a few minutes in that third set, it genuinely looked like ALEXEALA was about to do it again, beat another legend of the sport on the same court with the same crowd behind her. She didn't. But what happened after the loss says almost as much about who she is as the win that came before it. This is the story of the match that ended ALEXEALA's Wimbledon run, and why she,
of course, a huge victory. She took out the defending champion,
walked off center court having lost, and still called it one of the best weeks of her career. Let's set the scene, because the stakes here were enormous.
And you can see the pleasure, but also the relief, because
2 days earlier, Eala had done the unthinkable. She'd knocked out the defending Wimbledon champion in the third round, breaking down in tears afterward as the weight of that one hit her. Now she was back on center court in the round of 16, facing 13 seed Jasmine Paolini of Italy, the 2024 Wimbledon finalist, a proven big match player who knew exactly what it took to go deep at this tournament. There was history between them, too. Back in February at the Dubai Tennis Championships, Eala had beaten Paolini in a tight 3-set battle in the round of 32. Paolini walked onto center court this time with a score to settle. The match started evenly enough, both players holding serve for the opening 3 games. Then Paolini drew first blood, breaking Eala's serve in the 4th game by attacking a weakness in her second serve.
I would like to thank everybody who is here, and you make this tournament so special. And
she backed it up with a routine hold, and suddenly Paolini had rattled off 3 straight games to build a commanding 4-1 lead. Eala settled briefly, holding to trim the deficit to 4-2, and even carved out a break point the following game to threaten a real swing in momentum. But Paolini shut the door, held on, and closed out the first set 6-4. If you were watching live, this is the point where a lot of underdog stories quietly end. A dominant seed builds an early lead, closes a set, and rolls through the rest of the match without much resistance. That's not what happened. Eala came out for the second set swinging. She immediately pressured Paolini's serve, carving out 3 separate break points in that opening game alone, but couldn't convert any of them, and Paolini escaped with a hold. Both players then traded holds through the next game, and then Eala finally made her aggression count. She broke Paolini's serve to move ahead 2-1. Paolini answered immediately, breaking straight back to level things at 2-all. Then something remarkable happened. Down triple break point herself on serve. Facing a 0-40 deficit that could have handed Paolini a commanding surge to erase the deficit entirely, Eala produced one of the biggest holds of the entire match, reeling off 5 consecutive points to erase all 3 break points and push ahead 5-3. From there, she stayed composed. Both players held to the remaining games, and Eala closed out the second set 6-4, forcing the match to a decider. Center court gave her a standing ovation. The third set was pure nerve. Both players traded holds through the first 7 games. The set locked at 3-3, 4-4, nobody willing to blink first. And then, in the 8th game, Paolini finally found her opening. She broke Eala's serve to surge ahead 5-3, and closed out the match from there. An untimely double fall opened the door in the final stages, and Paolini converted, finishing the job as Eala's resistance faded in the last 2 games of a match that had run 2 hours and 21 minutes. Final score, 4-6, 6-4, 3-6. Paolini through to the quarterfinals. Eala's tournament over. After the match, Paolini gave real credit to how tough the fight had been, telling the center court crowd it had been a roller coaster kind of year for her personally, that there had been genuinely difficult moments, and that she was just trying to stay positive and enjoy her tennis, because loving what she does is her superpower. It's worth remembering Paolini herself had been dealing with a patchy, underwhelming season before this run. So this wasn't a case of an all-conquering, favorite-crushing, and overmatched underdog. It was two players who both fought through adversity to get to that court, and one of them came out on top by the narrowest of margins. For Paolini, this result marked a genuine turning point in a season that had otherwise been defined by inconsistent form and fitness struggles. Reaching a Wimbledon quarterfinal again, 2 years after her runner-up finish, was as much a comeback story for her as Eala's run had been a breakthrough. Now here's where the story gets genuinely interesting because of how Eala responded afterward in her press conference. She was asked directly about the fine margins that separate winning from losing at this level. Her answer was strikingly mature for a 21-year-old. She said tennis matches that are tight can come down to just 1 point or 2, and that what actually matters is how you manage yourself in those moments, whether you stuck to your game plan, whether you did everything you could in that instant. She said that's really all anyone can do, your best, full stop. She was also asked whether backing up a massive win, just 2 days after beating the defending champion, played a role in the result. Her answer showed real self-awareness. She said this was the first time she'd had a big win, and then had to turn around and play again only 2 days later, and that she felt she'd actually prepared well for this exact scenario. She pointed out there were many different factors that contributed to the result, and that on the preparation side specifically. She felt she'd done pretty well. She admitted that once the tournament was fully behind her and she'd had time to process the loss, the real emotions might hit again later, but in the moment, she was focused on the bigger picture, and she was honest about the match itself too. She said, of course, there were things she'd like to do differently, but she framed that as simply the nature of the sport. Every match is different. You're always searching for solutions, and your opponent is always searching for ways to make you uncomfortable. She gave real credit to Paolini here, saying Paolini had done exactly that, gone for her shots aggressively, and made her genuinely uncomfortable at several points in the match. Here's a detail worth sitting with, because it puts her mindset in sharp contrast with how a lot of players react to a tough loss. On that very same day at Wimbledon, Alex de Minaur was eliminated in the 4th round as well, and his reaction afterward was harsh and self-critical. He said flatly that one player's match went out to win, and the other went out not to lose, and that it was pretty obvious which one he'd been. That's a player tearing himself down after a loss. Eala's reaction was the opposite. She talked about what she'd take forward from the week, specifically how she'd handle pressure. She said there's pressure every single week on tour, and that the more you want to win, the more that pressure builds. And rather than letting the loss erase the value of the week, she said the opposite. This week, in general, would add to her confidence. She pointed out that if a career-best result like this didn't build confidence, nothing would. She said it's important that in every match she plays, she goes in believing she's able to win, and that belief doesn't evaporate just because of one match, one way or the other. Let's talk about exactly what she actually walked away with, because the numbers back up every bit of that confidence. By reaching a round of 16, Eala became the first Filipina in the Open era to reach that stage of a Grand Slam tournament. She became the first Filipino of any gender to ever be seated at a major. This run beat her previous career-best Grand Slam result by a full round. She'd only ever reached the second round of a major before, at last year's U.S. Open. And on top of all of that, her ranking climbed 4 places on the live rankings to world number 28, a brand new career high, even after the loss. Think about the country this all happened for. The Philippines has never had a tennis tradition to speak of. No domestic tour worth mentioning. No history of producing Grand Slam contenders in either the men's or women's game, ever, in the entire Open era, until this one tournament. Every round Eala advanced through wasn't just personal progress. It was uncharted territory for an entire nation watching back home. The day after the match, she posted a short message on Instagram, a photo of herself making a heart sign toward the crowd, with a simple caption that, according to reporting, said everything about how she genuinely felt. Proud, at peace, and grateful, rather than crushed. It's worth zooming out on what this tournament actually contained start to finish. She opened by beating Renata Zarazua in straight sets. She survived a 3-set battle against Maya Joint, avenging a painful loss from the year before. She then produced a signature win of her career so far, taking down defending champion IGA Swiatek in a match that ended with her in tears on center court. saying being emotional didn't mean she was satisfied. And then, finally, this hard-fought three-set battle against a proven Wimbledon finalist that could have gone either way, decided by a handful of points in the final games. That's not the story of a player who got lucky once and then faded. That's the story of a player who backed up the biggest win of her life 2 days later and came within a handful of points of going even further. It's also worth remembering just how young this whole run really is in the context of her career. Barely 18 months earlier, she was ranked outside the top 140 in the world, a name most casual tennis fans had never heard. Every single milestone from this Wimbledon, the seeding, the fourth round, the career-high ranking, happened in less time than it takes some players just to climb out qualifying rounds of Grand Slam tournaments. That trajectory alone tells you this Wimbledon run wasn't ceiling. It was a marker on a curve that's still climbing. So, where does that leave her heading forward? With a new career-high ranking, with genuine confidence heading into the U.S. Open hardcourt swing, and with a body of evidence, built match by match over these 2 weeks, that she belongs on the biggest courts in the sport against the very best players in the world. If you haven't seen it yet, go check out my last video. It covers the full story of how she beat IGA Swiatek in that third-round match, the tears afterward, and exactly what that win meant. And if you want to be here for whatever she does next at the U.S. Open and beyond, make sure you're subscribed, because this story is still being written.